Welcome to A2Council Update, a recap of the Ann Arbor City Council meeting on April 7th, 2025. This meeting included comments and discussion about evaluating multi-lane roads for reconfigurations and narrowing, establishing the governing structure for an opt-in sustainable energy utility, renewing a franchise agreement for service from DTE Gas, building city-owned parking decks to meet the needs of a private development at Arbor South, amending council rules around meeting norms and how members will spend travel budget, promoting Vision Zero and reducing vehicle miles traveled, and directing the City Planning Commission in its work on the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. This is the voting chart for the council meeting on April 7th, 2025. Two of these topics included split votes: negotiating $146 million in city investment for parking decks at a private development, and communicating suggestions to the City Planning Commission regarding the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. All other votes were unanimous. All agenda items were approved. You can find this voting chart and more information about this meeting at A2Council.com. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. The meeting included a presentation from Maura Thompson, Director of the Downtown Development Authority, or DDA. She explained a plan for expanding the boundaries of the DDA and increasing the amount of tax revenue it is eligible to receive for investment in the district.
On the left, that is the DDA's boundary. It is 67 blocks of our downtown. It was established over 43 years ago. It's important to note that with expansion areas, our taxing authority partners do have the option of opting out. So that does mean less revenue if they chose to opt out. In 2017, a 3.5% cap was placed on the DDA's growth. And you can see where our revenue line flattens over time.
She proposed an alternative funding model so the DDA could receive a larger share of tax revenue. She offered Grand Rapids as an example.
So the Grand Rapids DDA received 90% of the TIF capture, the other taxing units 10%. They then take a stepped approach. So every 5 years, that amount that goes back to the other taxing authority units increases, and it maxes out at 25%. So what we would be suggesting is we lock in at a 70-30 split, so that the other city and the other taxing units would receive 30% of the TIF capture throughout the life of the plan, and the DDA would receive 70% of the capture.
This week's meeting also included a presentation from Stephanie Carter, Chair of the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission, or ICPOC.
The chief has set up a training for ICPOC so we can see what training the officers receive. We are having our first annual Jude Walton Memorial Symposium, Social Justice Symposium. That's going to be May 21st, and you'll be getting more information about that.
After introductory remarks, public comments, and staff explanations, Council discussed agenda items for about 2 hours. 14 people signed up in advance to offer public comments. 9 people signed up to speak about topics on the agenda. The consent agenda this week included 24 items and expenditures of over $19 million. 1 item was pulled for discussion. A contract for $280,000 will pay for consultants to evaluate the reconfiguration of multiple major thoroughfares in the city. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
I join others who have signed the Safety for Stadium Now petition in calling on City Council to urgently appropriate funds to reconfigure all remaining multi-lane segments of Stadium Boulevard and Maple Road,
30
as
seconds.
well as the remaining section of West Liberty Street by August 2025 for a 2-year pilot.
Infrastructure improvements make our roads safer every hour of every day.
Staff offered explanation, and Council responded.
We are looking at all 10 multi-lane corridors throughout the city all at once to try to get a at-once understanding of the opportunities that are there for these roadways. The approach to modeling that will be part of the study is one that is much more based on current traffic patterns and volumes, and one that is not based on future escalation of forecasted population or car use growth.
You know, we had also discussed earlier amending this contract to incorporate setting target design speeds for interactions with vulnerable road users, and I understand that you all can do that administratively, and I just wanted to extend my thanks.
The contract was approved unanimously. Council considered changes to the process for altering a non-conforming structure. Under certain conditions, property owners will no longer have to seek approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
We're taking a very large number of potential projects that would have required ZBA approval and allowing people to do that without the overhead.
The ordinance amendments were approved unanimously. Without discussion, Council unanimously approved updates to the city's fire code. Council then considered final approval for a new ordinance establishing a governing structure for a sustainable energy utility. At a public hearing, a resident spoke to the issue.
I just want to remind you that the Five Lakes Energy report from a year and a half ago now recommended that any governance structure for the SEU be structured in such a way that it could fold into a future municipal electric utility run by the city, should one come into existence in the future. As you know, there's been some discussion about that. So just a reminder that that was a recommendation of Five Lakes Energy, and that in devising a governance structure for the SEU over time, this should be kept in consideration.
Council read statements in support.
Today is an important day in the history of Ann Arbor. It is perhaps the fondest hope of a representative to earn the gratitude of future generations. And with the creation of the A2 SEU, we at this table take such an action that will benefit our community for generations.
The ordinance was approved unanimously. Council then considered renewal of the city's franchise service agreement with DTE Gas to provide natural gas to city residents. The previous agreement had a term of 30 years. A new agreement has a term of 10 years. The work plan attached to the agreement includes two financial commitments from DTE: $500,000 to provide grants to landlords making efficiency improvements, and $300,000 in direct payments to local labor unions in support of workforce development. Earlier in the meeting, public commenters offered feedback.
We, the public, just heard about this 5 days ago, and that notice is insufficient in my opinion. I think this first reading should be delayed so that the community can better digest this and that Energy Commission can review it.
Staff presented the benefits included in the agreement.
I will note that it is a 10-year term, but since it was going to expire in 2027, it is really only an 8-year extension from the original franchise. It clearly signals that this community is serious about moving away from carbon.
We have also been looking at a biodigester at our wastewater recovery facility. We've done a number of studies, and we're at a point where we need help to understand the viability of moving that officially forward. Thankfully, they have agreed to work with us to seek the funding and to prove viability of this project, and to help us, if it is viable, bring it online by 2035.
According to the approved work plan with DTE, the level of financial support for the biodigester, if any, is at DTE's sole discretion. Council praised the agreement.
This is an excellent step forward. It is a step forward that we were able to take as a result of a committed community. Council members who show up and staff who has the vision to identify opportunities and to seize them.
It was approved unanimously at first reading. At a future meeting, it will be the subject of a public hearing and final approval at second reading. Council then considered a resolution directing the city administrator to negotiate a deal that would involve city investment of $146 million to build and own parking decks at the South Arbor development at State and Eisenhower. Earlier in the evening, a public commenter spoke to the issue.
If you do that for that developer with the parking structure, what is the next developer going to ask from the city to do for them, okay? Well, I read an article or something about the income of the parking structures that you do have, that they weren't making enough money to help cover the cost of maintenance and stuff, so they're failing. So why would you go into another possibly failing project?
City staff explained the concept of TIF financing. 30 years of tax revenue from Arbor South will be used to reimburse the city for the cost of the parking decks.
All available TIF as estimated over the 30-year life of the plan has been assigned to an eligible activity. So currently, as the plan is structured, all of the available TIF that will be created or estimated from the project over the lifespan of it has been assigned a corresponding eligible activity.
Council discussed it for about an hour.
We're asked to, go into this purchase land from the development for $11.4 million, then issue as a city general obligation bonds for $146 million. And then we all hope that there is success in this if it moves forward, but the payback of those bonds is $234 million.
This project is the first to take up transit corridor zoning. It's something that we all ran on, and many people voted for us because they supported it. And the vision of TC1 zoning is so simple.
And in this case, the bond repayment is designed to come solely from the new tax revenue generated by the development itself. This means the city's general fund and the existing taxpayer dollars are not on the hook. This is a self-contained, self-sustaining financial strategy.
Councilmember Iyer argued in favor of the investment.
And it's not just for the developer. Arbor South is designed to be a destination for all Ann Arborites. The fact of congregating people together and having housing at this scale on a transit line where people don't have to use that car that they have, in and of itself helps us realize our climate goals.
An amendment was proposed directing the city administrator to negotiate more benefits.
The additional resolved clause reads, resolved, the City Council directs the city administrator to negotiate commitments from the developer for features in accordance with the city's A2 and Vision Zero plans that include, for example, solar or geothermal energy, increased access to busing, and safe multimodal transportation.
The amendment passed, with only Councilmember Dish voting against.
And I guess my question is, at what point is the transit system sustained by development in TC1? At what point do we start to realize the tax benefit to sustain the service from these kinds of developments if we're locked in for the next 30 years of putting the money elsewhere? So again, that's my biggest sticking point at this point.
The project will, of course, be financed by TIF funds. These TIF funds are tax increment financing, taxes that come from the developer to pay for the lot, income from the parking structures to pay for the bonds used to purchase the parking structure.
Another amendment was offered to remove resolved clauses.
I'm going to ask for an amendment to strike two items from the resolution in front of us tonight, anticipating that they could be brought back, which is the second and third resolved clauses.
Those clauses directed the preparation of bond issuances and the development of special assessment districts. It failed, with only Briggs, Cornell, Ackmon, and Malik voting in support. The resolution directing the city administrator to negotiate a plan for city ownership of parking decks at Arbor South was ultimately approved, with only Councilmember Briggs and Ackmon voting no. Council considered changes to council rules related to meetings and reimbursements. One set of amendments will define the use of tabling and indefinite postponement of agenda items during meetings. A second set of amendments explain how members will receive reimbursements for travel. Councilmember Iyer explained.
These changes seek to clarify the roles of city staff and council when it comes to expenses and reporting and rule following and who oversees them and who approves them. And I think they strengthen the ethics surrounding them and really clarify that it's on council members to make sure that we are following campaign finance laws and that we are following the rules with the ethics rules related to expenses.
The changes clarify that there is no approval process for council member expenses. City staff will not deny a council member's requested reimbursement for travel, and reimbursements are not subject to approval by the mayor. Explanation is added, clarifying that travel budget can be used for both domestic and international destinations. These reimbursements for travel have existed for less than a year. In May 2024, City Council approved giving each individual member an annual budget of $5,000 for travel, available beginning July 1st, 2024. In April 2023, 13 months before Council granted itself that budget, and 14 months before the budget should have been available to him, Councilmember Redina requested and received over $2,200 in reimbursement for airfare to Tübingen, Germany. MLive published this photo of Redina on that trip, and this photo, taken by Redina, of Mayor Taylor tapping a keg. The amendments to Council rules were approved unanimously. Council then considered a resolution reaffirming the city's commitment to Vision Zero goals and road safety. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
The resolved clauses are all things that, as far as I know, the city was already doing. If not, well, I guess that's where this resolution comes in. I hope you evaluate the city administrator accordingly.
Now, I was pretty confused when I first read this because it sounded like a resolution that wasn't actually doing anything. I mean, considering these goals in every transportation project, we should already have been doing that, right? But unfortunately, after reflecting on this a bit, I've realized that we were not, that this resolution really is necessary.
Council discussed it for about 10 minutes.
I think we talk a lot less about reduction in vehicle miles traveled, which we aim to cut 50% by 2030. As noted in this resolution, that would mean that right now we would be at 561 million when we're actually at 1.1 billion. So we're not on track.
We're losing grants and organizations are in crisis. When the resolution, the second to last resolve clause says, directs the city administrator to align annual budget proposals to explicitly reflect and support the Vision Zero plan and VMT reduction. This is a question again for you, Mr. Dohoney. Do you have any estimate in regards to what proportion of the budget may be affected by that?
I can't give you that answer tonight. Obviously, council has the ultimate say over the way the budget is approved. I might be able to talk more specifically about it on the 21st, but I can't do that this evening.
The resolution was approved unanimously. Finally, Council considered a resolution communicating specific considerations for the Comprehensive Land Use Plan to mayoral appointees on the City Planning Commission. The resolution included explanation that Council does not draft or amend the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. That responsibility rests with mayoral appointees on the Planning Commission. However, by resolution, Council would communicate preferred guidelines for low-rise residential areas. Council proposes height limits of 35 feet or 3 stories and asks the Commission to consider the capacity of existing infrastructure, size and scale, housing units per structure, and the assembly of multiple lots to build much larger buildings in residential neighborhoods. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the issue.
Look at these lovely 3-story or 4-story townhomes in the south end of Boston. I really think those ought to be legal to build anywhere in the city. I don't see a reason to direct Planning Commission to discourage this sort of construction.
A friend of mine is actually a developer in another city. He got started in 1975. So I sent him the basics of this plan, and he just couldn't believe it. He said in 50 years in the business, he could not believe all the things that are waived and shoved aside. He even wonders if it's legal, given the fact that it yanks the rug out from under everybody that owns a home in this town.
The beneficiaries of the Planning Commission's proposal are real estate developers and people connected with them, and it's not going to be the lower and middle income families, and it's not the citizens of Ann Arbor. And the Planning Commission has a responsibility to correct the misinformation that the comprehensive plan will create lower housing costs.
0% of the public has seen any of these survey or feedback results in detailed form. I would like some transparency with the numbers that the city is basing these important decisions on. Why not post them on the comprehensive plan website? I can tell you for sure that at neighborhood meetings, residents are not expressing overwhelming consensus on this plan.
There's lots of time for involvement. Let's not lose momentum over whether the cap is 3 or 4 stories. Let's focus on what unites us, a desire for more affordable, inclusive, and sustainable Ann Arbor.
Council discussed the resolution for about 30 minutes.
So this plan is a critical step towards a more inclusive, sustainable future, and we need a new plan that reflects our values and goals, but we also need one that has enough support to actually be implemented when we get to the zoning phase.
I would be more comfortable if we waited, if we postponed this until after we actually have a draft plan versus reacting to our perceived consensus of what really has not played out.
I do think this is reacting to a certain narrative that's been in our community, but I think this is kind of undermining the role of the Planning Commission, the months of engagement that we've already asked the community to participate in.
The city has already gathered feedback from thousands of residents, and a clear community consensus has started to emerge in support of a 3-story multifamily housing in proposed low-rise residential areas citywide.
A motion to postpone the resolution failed, with only council members Cornell and Briggs voting in support. The council liaison to the Planning Commission, Councilmember Dish, acknowledged that controversial elements of a new plan had been discussed.
I am glad that we have more people engaged in the comp plan process. I'm glad they are showing up, but they are showing up primed for suspicion, pretty convinced that they've fallen victim to a bait and switch, because we were talking 35 feet and people on the Planning Commission, myself included, loud and clearly said that wasn't enough and we thought 48 would be better.
She was defiant in reacting to criticism.
I'm not responding to their objections. I am trying to fight back against what they are doing to my debate as a member of the Planning Commission. I need to make it clear that I heard what the community was saying, that I regret my statements that were not open to their voices.
The resolution offering direction to the City Planning Commission was approved, with only council members Briggs, Cornell, and Ackman voting against. 2 days after this vote, the city released the Planning Commission's draft of an updated comprehensive land use plan for the city. The plan defines 4 stories, or 48 feet, as the allowable height in low-rise residential districts. This week's meeting adjourned a little after 10:30 p.m. with no further public comment. For more details about this meeting, visit A2Council.com.
Welcome to this week's A2Council Moment of Zen.
For those who want to impugn the motives of planning commissioners, criticize their employers, or say that a body appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council can't be responsive to public feedback, I would caution against this line of criticism because could be applied to any of our city commissions.
Councilmember?
Okay.